afternoon. Today we'll be starting with the second unit of our syllabus, and it's in continuation, you can say, with the last part that we have covered in the first unit. So in the first unit, the second part we had covered was related to the railways, and it was mainly the permanent way or the railway track and the different components that we had, and what all different types we can have in those components. We saw that. Now in the second unit, again we'll be continuing with the same, some few more terminologies related to the railways, some few more concepts. So let's get started. In today's lecture, we will be covering what is known as rail joints. Now, rail joints, we all know that a joint comes into picture when you have a discontinuity in a system. So similarly, in case of railways, there can be two types of discontinuities. Okay. So two types of discontinuity, as in the first discontinuity can be between a rail to rail. So as we all know, a railway track, it is of hundreds and thousands of kilometers continuous. But even if we say it is continuous, it is not constructed in a continuous way. There is some discontinuity. So the rails are never casted in industries in hundreds and thousands of kilometer length. They are casted in some few meters of length, and then they are joined on the site as per the requirement. So there comes the first discontinuity in our system, that is the discontinuity between a rail to rail. The second discontinuity, it is between the different components of a permanent way. So what I mean by this different components of permanent way is nothing but we have seen in a permanent way we have a rail, okay, for just representative purpose. This is a rail which is placed on a sleeper, and that sleeper, it is packed with some ballast which is all around your sleeper, below and around as well, and then it is resting on a subbase or a subgrade or a formation, and these rails are connected to your sleepers with help of a fixtures and fastening. So there are different components. So if I am joining two different components, so that's the discontinuity in my system, okay, because it's not homogeneous. So rail joints are nothing but they are components or aspects which are necessary to hold together the adjoining rails of ends of the rail in the vertical and horizontal plane. So in this rail joints, what we'll be seeing mainly is the first type of discontinuity, that is the rail to rail discontinuity, how we can make it continuous. Okay, so obviously we have two different rails. So in order to join those two different rails, what can be done? So one of the thing that we have studied in the last unit is the concept of fish plate and fish bolt, if you just recall it. So it's nothing but a steel or a metal plate which is almost of the shape of the web between the head and the foot of your rail, and then that those plates on the either side of the rail, they are joined by this fish bolt, and it looks something like this in the side view. This is the section. So that is one basic type of rail joint, but in that also we have different types that will be seen today. So before proceeding to the types, some few points to remember regarding the joint. That is, I have discussed this or told this in the previous lectures as well, that rail joints, they are the weakest part of a track. Not only track, a joint particularly, any joint in any system, it is the weakest link of that system. For example, you can take a RCC structure, the joint or the section where the column meets the beam. So that is also a type of a joint, and that is also weak link in your structure. Similar way, in case of railway or railway track or permanent way, the rail joints, they are the weakest part. So though we are not having any option, we have to give joints because we cannot have a continuous thousands of kilometers of rail together. So though we are introducing discontinuity by purpose in our system, but we are making sure that these joints, though they are weak links, but we provide as much as strength possible in these joints. So from strength aspect, if it is seen, so the strength of the rail joint, it is only 50% of the strength of the rail. So whatever is the strength of the actual rail, when you provide this discontinuity, this gap in between, so it reduces the strength of this system, this joint section as a whole, by 50%. So though it is reducing by 50%, we need to provide something, or we need to make the system such that it is stable at this less or reduced strength as well. So as we have seen before also, if we go into the details of a ideal joint, so an ideal joint, how it should be, so the two ends of the rail, whatever it is joining, so it should keep it laterally and vertically stable even when the train moves on the track. Then the rail joint should be strong and stiff as well as elastic. Yeah, now this we have discussed previously also, that your system, yes, particularly in the rails, we had discussed that rail sleeper connection or the system, it should be elastic, but it also be a little bit stiff or rigid. So same goes for the rail joint also. The joint should be provided so that enough space is there between two rails. As we all know, rails are made of metals, and metals, they tend to expand and contract on changes in the temperature. So that expansion and contraction should be allowed. And if you allow this expansion and contraction, then only there will not be any thermal stresses in your system. So in your last year, what in the SOM, what you might have studied the thermal stresses. So thermal stresses are induced in a system only if the expansion or the contraction caused due to the temperature variation, it is restricted. If it is not restricted, then it is a free movement, and then no stress is developed in temperature, or temperature stress is not developed. So that's why enough space should be provided. Now this space should be just enough. It should not be a huge gap, or also it should not be a small gap. It should be an optimum one. Then it should be easily disconnected table. Now again, we are, on one side we are saying that a joint, it is already a weak link, and we are trying to make it stable, but at the same time, the disconnectability, it should be done at an ease. So this is from the maintenance point of view. So if your joints are not easily removable or disconnectable, then the maintenance will take a long time, and then it will hamper the schedule of your system. Then it should not allow the rail ends to get battered. Now what is this battering, we'll be seeing in the next slides. And the joint should fulfill all the requirements with, again, if you see, the cost aspect has come into picture. The initial cost and maintenance cost of these joints should be minimum. Okay, so that's the universal criteria that we have in construction field, that the cost should be minimum. So same applies for your joint. So these are the ideal requirements of your joint. Now coming to the types. So these are the 10 different types of joints that we'll be discussing today. We'll look into the joints one by one. So first is the supported rail joint. So supported rail joint is nothing but, this is the typical sketch that I have shown in the top right side. So these are the rails in the black lines, and what you have is a fish plate, or those two rails are connected by a means of a fish plate, which is shown in the red color, and the yellow ones are the fish bolts. But what is the main difference, or main peculiarity of the supported rail joint is, you have a sleeper supporting at the bottom. Obviously, your rails are placed on the sleeper, but in this case, whatever is this gap, whatever gap you are seeing here, this gap what you see here, so that gap is also supported by a sleeper, and that specific sleeper is known as a joint sleeper. And obviously there are sleepers on other sides, or either sides of the gap as well. Those are the normal sleepers, and the one which is just below the gap, that is the joint sleeper. So a typical actual picture you can see here, that these two are the rails. This is the rail number one, this is the rail number two, and this is the gap in between that I'm talking about. And that gap, it is joined by this fish plate, and this joint, it is supported by this sleeper. Okay, so this sleeper is nothing but the joint sleeper in this case, and whatever sleeper you see in this side, that is the normal sleeper. So this is your supported rail joint. Now generally this type of rail joint, it is not much of in practice, because the packing, what we are doing is, whatever is the general spacing of the sleeper, we are differing from that spacing criteria, and we are introducing one more sleeper. So in that case, we are reducing the spacing between the sleeper, at least for this joint section. So when you reduce the spacing, obviously the ballast which will go into this spacing, this spacing here, it will be less. And if you are having a less ballast, then the packing will not be proper, and then that tends the sleeper to become loose under the loads. Okay, and if these sleepers, these normal sleepers, they deviate, or they sink somewhat below, so that will cause a huge load on this joint sleeper. So that sleeper will tend to get uh, wear and tear of that sleeper, of that joint sleeper. It will be more. As you can see in this picture also, the joint sleeper, it is, the condition is not good. It has been cracked in the between, as it's a wooden type. So that's why this type of supported rail joint, it is not much practice in field. The next one is the suspended rail joint. Now again, you have a schematic at the top right. So it's almost similar to what we have seen in this supported joint. Only difference you can observe in the sleepers. In supported rail joint, we had three sleepers. The middle sleeper was below the gap, but in suspended, now as the name suggests, whatever is the gap in the two rails, that is suspended, kept suspended. So mainly the reason of keeping this suspended is because the demerit that we have seen in case of a supported rail joint, that the central sleeper, it tends to get damaged a lot. So due to that, what they have done is, the sleepers, they have just taken it little bit nearer to this gap. Okay, somewhere it was here during supported sleeper or supported rail joint. So that they have just shifted to the this side, and the central sleeper that was there, they have removed that sleeper. So this is the typical picture of a suspended rail joint. So the joint is connected by a fish plate, but there is no support between this or below this gap. Okay, there is only ballast, and whatever are these sleepers at both the sides of the joint, that is known as the shoulder sleeper. Okay, so these are the terms that you have to remember while explaining these concepts in your exams as well. So not just you have to say it's sleeper, but it has a typical name, that is the shoulder sleeper. Here we have a typical name to the sleeper below the gap, that is a joint sleeper. Okay, and generally this type is used with timber and steel, but here you can see it is also used for, this is a cement concrete type of sleeper. So generally it is used with timber and steel, but you can use it for any type of sleeper as long as the system is stable. The third kind of joint, it is a bridge joint. Now again, if you see here, if you are keeping the joint suspended, so obviously the strength that you will get from this system, it will be less, because at this section you should have ideally some support. But we have seen that if you provide sleepers, that sleeper is getting damaged. So what was done was, or what is one option is, a plate, a fish plate, you can say. They name it as a fish plate. It is nothing but a metal plate. Okay, it is maybe a corrugated one or a flat one. Corrugated as in, it can be like this in a cross section, or it can be normal, a flat plate. So that is bent in such a way so that it fits between two shoulder sleepers, and the apex of that plate of that shape, it supports or it touches just the edges of the or ends of the rails. So in that case, we are not occupying much space, so the packing of the ballast is not affected. But at the same time, whatever is the gap, we are supporting that gap, and that support is then rested on the ends of the sleeper. So if you see the load transmission, whatever is the load, it will be taken by this plate and it will be transported to the sleeper at this location. But this kind of joint, it is not used in Indian Railways. You can find this type of bridge joints in the outer countries, but Indian Railway doesn't use this kind of joints. Now the next fourth type is a base joint. Now for base joint, if you have understood this bridge joint, then the base joint is very much similar to the bridge joint. Now it is similar, but the only difference is the fish plates that we have. In this case, we have same fish plates on both the ends or both the sides of the rail. This is the front side, and at the back side you will be having the same kind of fish plate. But in case of base joint, what you have is a normal fish plate which is on the inner side. Now on this side you have one more rail. Okay. Suppose here somewhere you have the another rail which is placed. Okay. So the inner fish plate, it is a bar type, a flat steel bar or metal bar. But the outer fish plate, it is a special angle type. Special angle type as in, if you see, it has this normal face which is touching your web, but it is having this typical angle. This typical angle is such that it fits on the foot of the rail, as well as it can be bolted inside the sleeper as well as bridge plate. So now if you just observe the diagram carefully, so one end or the plate portion of the fish plate, it is connected to the other fish plate by the fish bolts. Okay, this one. But whatever is the base or the angle section, okay, now in SD you might be studying angle section. So whatever angle section you study in SD, so this is typical to, or this type is typical to that. So the leg of this angle section, it is a different type or different shape, so that it can sit on the foot of the rail as well as it can be bolted into the sleeper. Now the bridge plate, what I have shown here in this red, it is behind the sleeper. Okay. Because if you see the diagram in the next, or this diagram what you are seeing schematic, it is a sectional view. If I make a cut from here and I see in this direction, so that's the section what you are looking at here. So the bridge plate, obviously it will be behind the sleeper, but your angle or the leg of this outer fish plate, it will be connected both to the plate as well as at the sleeper. So you'll be having a connection or a bolting here, as well as you will be having a bolting over here. Okay, so that's a base joint. So for understanding base joint, the bridge joint is important, and similar to, it is very similar to this. Only difference is this outer fish plate, it is of a different shape. This is the pink color, what you can see, that is a different kind of fish plate. Okay, but if you see, the design itself is a lot complicated. You have two different types of fish plate, and you have to be very sure that the shape of the leg of this outer fish plate, it matches the all the components and it fits properly. So due to this complicated design, it is not generally used, but concept wise you can very well just keep in mind what is a base joint plate or base joint in a rail type joint. Now the next one, which is the most widely used nowadays, that is the welded joint. Now no need to explain, whatever is the gap between the two rails, So that gap is joined with the help of a weld. Okay, you all know weld, it's an external metal which is capable of joining two different components. So same way, it is used in railway, and the notable point is it's one of the ideal joint. That is whatever requirements we have seen, requirements for an ideal joint. So your welded type of joint, it almost satisfies all the requirements. So that's why you can see in most of the sections in Indian Railway, this welding is done. And here typical pictures are shown. This first picture, what you see here, okay. So this is the actual welding process which has done, and this is the picture of just uh, how it looks after welding. And then you have to remove this excess material from the top to make it smooth, as well as from the edges. So after grinding and all, you get such type of a finish. So this is a typically welded joint, what you see after finishing. So we will be having a detailed discussion on this welding in the next lecture, but for now you just have this kind of joint. Then the next type, you have two types. So one is staggered or broken joint, and another is square or even joint. Now you can very well just make out the difference between the two types of joint. In staggered joint, what you have two rails, as we all know, in the permanent way. So whatever is the, suppose this outer rail and this inner rail. So obviously both the rails will be in parts and they will be joined, but it is taken care that the joints, they never come in front of each other, or in other words, the joint are never parallel. They are in a staggered manner like this. And in opposition or in contrast to this, you have a square or an even joint in which the joints of your outer rail and inner rail, or rail number 1 and rail number 2, you can say. So those, both the joints, they are parallel to each other, they are facing each other. Okay. So generally in case of straight section, you will find this kind of, this kind of joints can be given straight or even joint. And typically in a curve section, to maintain the strength of your rail system uniform, so in curve section you will be having this staggered kind of or broken type of joints. Then you have a eighth type we have, that is the compromise joint. Now from the name itself you can guess a little bit. Now this type of joint is used where you have two different types of rail. Now uh, just to remind you, what we are discussing is the rail to rail connection and the joints. So in rail to rail, whatever types you have seen till now, those are applicable if you are both the rails at both the ends, they are of the same type. That is, if suppose this rail is flat footed, so the rail on this side is also flat footed. So in that case, the 7 joints which we have seen before this, those are applicable. But if suppose you have a different type, that is, you have a bull headed rail here and it is to be joined to the flat footed rail, or a bull headed rail, it has to be joined to a double headed rail, or in flat footed itself you have one type of flat footed rail and you have to join it to the second type of flat footed rail. So there are types within flat footed also, types mainly based on the density of the rail. So if that is the case, you have two different rails, then we join it by the compromise joint, and that compromise joint is nothing but again a fish plate. But if you see here now, the shape of the fish plate, it is a bit different. Okay. So this is one type of rail, and the moment the rail changes, to adjust the web section or to adjust the gap between these two rails, the central section or the middle portion of the fish plate, it is having some indentation. Okay, so that this indentation is to match the rails. You can see in this also. So this is one rail and it is just this type of indentation is given. Okay. So this is nothing but a compromise joint. Then ninth type you have insulated joint. Insulated joint, again from the name itself we can guess that these types of joints are used where you need to provide an insulation. Now knowing that almost major routes or majority of the rail sections in India, they are electrified. That is, the engines they run on electricity. You have a overhead uh, wire, and you have such types of angles which are protruding from your engine, and this is the main engine, suppose. So the electricity which is running through these wires, it is drawn into the engine, into the motors by these angles, and then it goes to the wheels and it goes to the rails, and the rails are connected. So the loop is completed, and once the loop is completed, then only the electricity will flow. So this is the basics of electronics and electrical that you have studied in basic electrical. So same way it works with the railways as well, but in a particular at certain locations you need to break this loop. Suppose you have a this rail section. Okay, this is the plan that I am showing, and you have to break the electricity connection here. So suppose there is a this is the rail. Okay, these are two types of rails, and suppose you have to join them. So here, as we have to provide a discontinuity in the electricity circuit, so here whatever joints will be provided, those will be this insulated joint. So insulating material, in this case this yellow part that you see, that's the insulating material. So that will prevent the electricity from flowing from this section to this section. Okay. Now this flowing of electricity and this track circuiting part you don't have in this syllabus, but it's an interesting topic to study. You can just go to the web and search for track circuiting. So if you search this track circuiting in railways, so you'll get a lot of pages. You can see any web page. There is also a Wikipedia page for this. So track circuiting, you can come to know what is it. So for stopping the flow of the current, for now you remember that we use this insulated joint. And the last type of joint that we have is the expansion joint. Now this expansion joint is, from the name again you can guess that it is provided where uh, you have a long continuity or continuous rails, but in between you have to provide some gap so that there is free expansion and then no thermal stresses are induced. So the expansion gap, either it can be just a normal rail and you leave a gap in between. So this is a one type of typical rail, uh, expansion joint rail. But another type of giving expansion joint is this, which is shown here. So what they have done is, just if I draw this in plan, so in plan also it will be looking something like this. So two rails and they are having a gap in between. But what they have done here is rail number 1, it is having such kind of shape, and rail number 2, it is having this kind of shape. Okay, so at the end both the rails are having the same width. Here also the width will be same, but the structure, it's just like a jigsaw puzzle. So the structure is different at this joint, and whatever gap you see here, so this gap, it acts as an expansion gap, okay, on both the sides. So what we are doing is we are just increasing the number of locations where the rail can expand. In this figure, in this example, we are just giving, or we are just having one location. At this location the expansion can happen, but if we provide this type of a slot in your rail, so here at two locations your expansion can happen. So at two location it will be freely expanding, and then the stresses will be a lot more less than the stresses that could be developed in this first type. So this is a typical expansion joint. So here also what you can see, a little bit shape, just they have differed, but it's still a expansion joint. Whatever gaps you see here, so these gaps are for expansion purpose. Okay. So whatever you see here, so they are generally provided, these joints are provided at bridges, because bridges, they are railway bridges, you must have seen. So most of the railway bridges are steel bridges, so obviously there is expansion in that bridge as well as the railway track. So to assist that expansion and contraction, this expansion joint is provided. Now, as I told you, joints, they are the weakest link in your system. So obviously there are some evil effects or bad effects or negative impact of your rail joint. So I have just given the description, you can just read it, but the heading is itself self-explanatory. That is, the first evil effect is you need an increased maintenance effort, obviously, because you have to check in each and every joint whether it is in proper position, whether the bolts are tight, whether the plates are at position. So it's estimated that almost 30% of extra labor is required just for this maintenance of joint purpose. Okay, so you can see the effort that is put on in the joint inspection. Then, due to this gap in between your rails, though we are trying to maintain a continuity and you are trying to reduce the gap, but whatever is the gap, that causes a great amount of noise effect or noise pollution. Then, as I told you, the joints are the weakest links, so obviously they will hamper the lifespan of your system, so it will give you a shorter lifespan. And particularly the rails, they are battered and hogged. Now what I mean by this battered and hogged is this. So at the joint section you will see the just before this gap, this is the actual gap, okay, that we have maintained, and just before the gap the width of this rail, it increases slightly. So it's like someone has hammered on this part. So this hammering action or this increased width, what you can see here, so that is nothing but battering of rails. And hogging of rails is nothing but the downward push which is given by your uh, engine or the wheel system. So that downward push, your rails are not able to handle because there is a gap in between. There is a discontinuity, and that's why the rails, they bend at the ends. So this deflection or this bending is also very negligible. You can't even see it from a far away distance. You have to get very close to it and to check whether the rails are hogged or not. So that is the hogging of rail or hogged rail. So battered and hogged rail. Then there are chances of sabotage. That is, wherever there is a joint, there is a potential that if someone uh, plays some evil role and tries to remove the fish plate at the joint, so at that point there is a huge accident or a mishap that can happen. So that is nothing but sabotage chances. So purposefully someone removes the fish plate or damages the joints, then it affects the overall quality of the system. Okay, because there is an excessive wear and tear, there is a lot of noise, so that's why the quality is hampered. The fuel consumption increases a bit because at joints you require extra effort. Okay, because the joints are weak, the strength of the joint is weak, so uh, we have to compensate that strength somewhere. So that strength is compensated in the form of you require extra effort at the joint section. Now this may not seem much of a considerable thing in a straight section or a at level railway track, but if you have a gradient, if you are having an up gradient or a down gradient, and in that suppose there are joints provided, so you need a more effort to cross this joint. So that results in more fuel consumption. Now, obviously, there are remedial measures for this. So these are the remedial measures. Now, some of them are quite obvious ones, such as the proper packing of the joints, the tightening of fish bolts, then the welding of better rails and dehugging. So if you provide welding in the rails or you provide welded rails, so this battering and hogging will not come into picture. Then you need to provide lubrication so that the joints are well maintained and improving the fatigue resistance. Now, the important thing that can be done or which is done for reducing this evil effects of rail joints is providing shims or repressed fish plate. Now, what is this repressed fish plate? This is nothing but the one you can see in this picture at the bottom. So whatever is this fish plate, we have seen till now the fish plates are a flat one, but a repressed fish plate is nothing but at the joint section, the gap is provided between the actual face of the rail and the fish plate. So that is nothing but repressed fish plate. So this minimizes the evil effects. And another thing is this shims. Now shims is nothing but, you can see here, this is nothing but a typical design picture of a shim. Now shims are nothing but flat plates, and these are such L type of flat plates, and which are inserted between the fish plate and the rail joints. As you can see here, this plate what this person is inserting, so this is the shim plate. Okay, so the vertical section, it goes inside between the rails and the fish plate, and the horizontal section comes on the top of the fish plate. So this reduces again the evil effect. It suppresses the noise, it increases the load transfer capacity and strength of your joint overall. So these are some of the remedial measures. So today we'll stop here, and what we have completed, we'll just, I'll give you a quick glance. We saw what is a rail joint, then we saw ideally how a rail joint should be. Then we have types, 10 different types. Then we saw each type in detail: the supported, suspended, bridge, base, welded, staggered, square, compromise, insulated, and expansion. Then we saw there are some evil effects or negative impacts of your rail joint. So there are quite a few, 6 types of evil effects. And then we saw the remedial measures that can be done for this overcoming of this negative impact. So this is all for today.